Bless up, everyone. BaddaSkat here. Monday meditations. Enough respect to you all. Hope everyone's feeling nice, feeling happy, feeling healthy. It's Monday. It's roughly 4:44 p.m. Eastern Time, which means it's time for another episode of Monday Meditation. So give thanks again for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, this does happen every Monday. How it works: Monday morning, I usually post a short video with the topic of discussion. And these topics really just meant to get you to think a little bit deeper about things, to expand your consciousness, hopefully help you to become the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. And then we come back here, Facebook Live, and we discuss that topic in more detail. And yeah, that usually happens at around 4:44 p.m. So give thanks for tuning in. If you are watching this as a rerun, give thanks as well for coming back and spending your time here with us on Monday. This may also be syndicated in the future, or if you're listening to this, I may be forecasting the future, but you may soon be able to hear this on Salt Cured Radio as well. So shouts out to Salt Cured. Shouts out to all the sponsors. Please definitely feel free to share the video. Feel free to share it to any groups that you may belong to. Again, also, if you're watching it as a rerun, share it as well. Give thanks. I appreciate it. The only reason these Monday meditation videos grow is because you guys continue to share them and you continue to spread them out to your friends. So it really means a lot to me, and I very much appreciate the effort on your part to promote this as well. And again, everywhere I go out, any show I do, anywhere I DJ, anywhere I take the truck back tour, somebody always says, hey, give thanks for doing the Monday meditations, give thanks for posting those, and, give thanks for your support with them as well. If you have any questions as we're going along today, please feel free to leave those in the comments, and I will address them as they come through. So, shouts out to everyone tuning in. Today's topic is one that I have been researching for a little while, not super long, and really maybe only a couple years, but still something that I am highly intrigued by, and I wish I had spent more time today collecting notes. I do have some photo examples to show to you guys today, but I wish I had more in regards to more of the indigenous American tribes and some of their outlooks on these giant trees and how they have applied to ancient creation stories. So I do wish I had more information on that. However, we will still be able to talk a lot about giant trees because even though we feel that we have perhaps experienced some large trees, maybe even some trees that you've been able to drive your car through, or that you've had to, try to stretch with multiple people in order to get your arms around. We may have seen trees like these, but these are still minuscule in comparison to some of the theories that are out there in regards to giant trees that once existed on Earth or some form of Earth. So, So one thing to kind of just to start with this, one of the theories behind the giant tree, or one of the sticking points, get it, within the giant tree theory is that a lot of the trees that we know of today are actually just bushes and grasses. And this is actually true to some degree. For example, all palm trees. So if you think of all the palm trees that exist on this planet, a palm tree is actually a type of grass. So all the palm trees that you can think of all over the world are really just tall grasses. Same thing applies to bamboo. Bamboo is one of the tallest growing plants in the world, and it's a grass. It is a form of grass. It grows rapidly, and even though it may be large in comparison to humans, it's still just grass. And so the same thing applies to trees. A lot of trees are really just large bushes. And when you put them together, if you allow them to grow unmanicured, unshaped, a lot of them would result in just giant bushes. And so some of the theories behind the giant tree theory is that, a lot of all of the giant trees that once existed on Earth no longer exist due to some sort of cataclysm, some sort of catastrophic event. And this essentially wiped out all of the life on this planet. And so this can be seen in the age of the forest that currently exists on this planet. So the oldest trees in the forest that you will find, very few of them are going to be older than 200 years old. And those that are over 200 years old are all documented and all cataloged and all protected and are they know where they are. They know where all of them are all over the world. There are some trees that are very old. There are definitely trees that are older than 200 years old. So don't say, BaddaSkat trees are only 200 years old. That's not the case. There are definitely trees that are older than 200 years old. There's a tree in Mexico that's 2,000 years old. There's trees in Africa that are over 2,000 years old. And these are very large trees, granted. However, they are still not anywhere near the size comparison of the trees that we're going to be talking about today. So, big up Brian. Brian says, my favorite tree is not really a tree at all. So, yeah, very true. Yeah, man, that's a herb, okay? But we're not talking about tree classification specifically today, but enough respect, man. Enough respect. Shouts out to Brian and Natural Photography Framing every single time. Excuse me. So yes, so there are definitely trees that are way older than 200 years old. But these trees are only going to reach a certain height. They are only going to be so tall. And this typically tends to be about 30 meters or about 90 feet. Okay? So 90 to 100 feet is about the tallest tree that you're going to find. Now, again, granted, there are trees that are taller than this, but they are very few. And they are also known, and they are protected, and they are cataloged, and they know exactly where they're at because they have been left for us to see. Okay? So, now, why would there not be any giant trees anymore? Well, there's a couple theories behind this as well. One of the theories is that the Earth that we live on used to be part of a much larger planet. And so, on this much larger planet, there existed much larger life forms. Larger animals, larger humanoids, and larger trees. So one of the theories is that there was a collision in the cosmos between the former Earth, whose name was, now I can't think of it, but the larger Earth had a collision with some other planet, and this resulting collision basically, the result of this collision can be seen in our asteroid belt, which is within our solar system. It's essentially just a giant belt of rocks and meteors and ice and fragments, and they believe that this is the result of this collision. But Earth is essentially the result, or the what's left of the formerly the much larger planet. The other theory is that the Earth has been used as essentially a mining operation, and the materials and the resources that used to be present on the Earth have been mined and removed from the surface, from the core, or from the inner layers. And what we are living on now is just the byproduct of all of that that mining. And these theories are really, again, all over the world. The evidence of these particular mining operations can be found in lots of different examples, in different mountain ranges, and different canyons, and different bizarre natural formations that exist. Even some of the great megalithic structures have evidence of mining techniques and machinery still present on their surfaces. So the theory behind where are all of the large trees now is that they were essentially mined, because they weren't made of wood. They were made of silicon. They were silicone based excuse me silicone based life forms. So instead of growing from a carbon based life form, they are silicon based, which means they grow from what we would call the rocks. Now, there are conflicting examples of this around the world as well, because you can go out and you can find examples of petrified forests. There's not many of them, and in these petrified forests, or where there are petrified trees, they're not really forests. It's not like there's a huge collection of just fallen petrified trees. They're essentially scattered fragments that appear to have been sawed, cut, and placed. But really, nobody really knows how they got there. But if the scientific theory behind how fossilization and how petrification occurs would require that these trees would basically have to disregard all of the laws of physics when it comes to decomposition. So basically, they would have to be preserved either by rock, so lava, magma from a volcano or from an eruption, and then they would have to preserve, or they would have to avoid decomposition, which is present anytime you go below the surface, anytime you go into the soil. So these petrified trees that you find, or that you may find out in the world, are the few remaining examples of these silicon-based trees. However, they are not the actual trees themselves. They are just small fragments or branches, twigs, sticks that were part of these giant trees. So what are these giant trees that I'm talking about? What do you mean, Badda? Giant trees. Okay, so we know of the redwoods, like in California and Canada, and the giant trees that are out there. The current giant carbon-based living trees. And these trees can be 100 feet tall, sometimes 100 plus. They can be 30 feet around, So these are huge trees, but there are some other examples of former giant trees that can still be seen all over the earth. in every continent. Everywhere, everywhere, all over the earth, there are examples of these ancient giant trees that no longer exist. So let me show you what I mean. So we have all heard of, probably the most famous example of this is Devil's Tower. And Devil's Tower is, oh no, I can't remember exactly where it's at. Arizona, I believe, but I could be wrong. So Devil's Tower looks like this. And this is basically, according to some theorists, this is an ancient giant tree stump. So what's left of it. And so, if you look, I'll just zoom in a little bit. If you look, you can kind of see how there are these columns along the tree, or along the sides. Now, the scientific explanation behind this is that these are magma columns. These are lava tubes. And the lava essentially, over millions of years, has pushed itself up in these perfectly hexagonal formations, in these perfect lava tubes, to where they essentially just protrude out of the ground, and there's no other evidence of anything else like this in the area. So this is what it looks like from the top, or from a more aerial view. Sorry, I'm trying to see it while I show it as well, so my bad. So you see, this is how it looks from a more aerial view. Now, if this was a tree stump, let's just say this did belong to a giant tree, and this giant tree had been cut down by a saw of some kind. Does this, down here at the bottom, kind of look like sawdust or rubble that might have been a byproduct of chopping down this giant tree? Maybe. Let's look at some other examples. And these are found all over the world. So that is in the United States. Can I... Of course, now I don't know. I don't remember exactly where all of these are from. I think this one was in... this might have been in Australia. I'm not sure. But this is another example. Now, these are called mesas, or plateaus, or buttes. But you see how it looks like. Looks like it might have been a giant tree that was just chopped off. So let's find some others. So this one, this is in Venezuela. There's actually quite a few in Venezuela. So, looks like it could have potentially been a giant tree stump. Maybe. This one's in Sri Lanka. They actually built dwellings on top of it. But again, it essentially looks like rubble down along the bottom. This is in Utah, I believe. Also Venezuela. Now, what's cool about this one, and this is one of the ones that actually kind of really made me go like, huh, okay. This may actually be a tree. So, pay attention to what you can see in this picture. Sorry, I'm trying not to blind you with the light, but yet still show you what's in there. So look, if you can see on the sides of this mesa, there are waterfalls. So let me try to zoom in on this. So there are waterfalls coming out the side of this and from the top of this giant mesa. So this particular stump, if it were a stump, is actually still channeling water through its core. It's still trying to feed itself via the root system, still pumping it out of the earth and out through its xylem and phylum, right? This one is in Tunisia. This is a pretty cool one because you can actually see the rings that you can see in the cross section of a tree. They say if this tree were still based on the diameter of this tree or this stump, if it were a tree, it would have been 10 miles high. 10 miles high. So the reason I mention this is because there are some creation stories within different Native American tribes, within different African tribes, within different indigenous tribes all over the world that have creation stories where humanity used to live in a giant tree. You've heard of the tree of life? Well, there are some cultures that believe that all of humanity once lived, existed, and operated on and within a giant tree. And again, this tree is where all of humanity lived. So if a tree was 10 miles high, and 3 miles around, 3 miles deep, it could sustain a lot of life, a lot of small human life. So these are just a couple examples of cut and broken trees and natural mountains and mesa formations. What's up, Cena? Enough respect. Big up Mike Griffith. Mike Griffith says roots run deep. Definitely. Cena says we're talking trees, I take it? Yes, Cena, we're talking about giant trees. So here's some examples of actual trees, broken and cut, and then natural mountains and mesas that have a strikingly similar resemblance. And I always say, there's no such thing as coincidence. So, here's another. So, this is a tree. These are mountains. This is a mountain. This is a tree. This is a tree. This is a mountain. This is a mountain. This is a mountain. Yeah. This is Devil's Tower and an actual tree stump. So, as you can see, very similar. Very similar. There's a broken tree in a mountain range. So here's an example of these lava tubes, these hexagonal formations. These are all hexagons. And these supposedly form naturally, or are the results of natural lava magma flow. So if you look up basalt mountains or basalt tubes, the definition and the explanation is that they are the result of lava flow or eruption. And I've never seen a volcano erupt in perfectly hexagonal formations. Never seen a volcano push out perfectly hexagonal lava chunks. It just doesn't work like that. This is how life grows, okay? This is how cells form. So if you were to cut open a plant, like a plant from your yard, and you were to look at the cross section of xylem and phylum within the inside of a plant, it looks like this. This is what it looks like. Okay? If you look at the inside of a honeycomb, it looks like this. Because this is the way life grows. This hexagon formation, it's very significant in nature. It's very, it's a frequency. It's a mathematic equation, and the equation is efficiency. So this is the most efficient way to fill a space. So when life forms and when life grows and when cells develop, especially cells that are used in the transport of liquid, it does so in this hexagon formation, because this is the most efficient way to transport the greatest volume of liquid. This. So this isn't the result of a volcanic explosion. This isn't the result of an eruption. And if this were the result of lava plugs, that's what they call them, these lava tubes that force themselves out of the earth, why isn't it still happening? Why can't we go to these places and take measurements of these and measure how far that they've changed over years? Because they don't. Because that's not how this happened. This is the result of the removal of life. This is the result of the removal of a living organism that once existed in this place. This used to be a giant living organism that used to transport water up its stalk to its leaves and its branches and everything else that was in it. Cena says, now I want to go get a microscope and look inside my plants. Go do it. Go do it. This is what you're going to see. Okay? This is what you're going to see. And you don't have to do that. Just go look it up. Just go look up the cross section. Go look up xylem and phylum. Go look how they look. Go, go check that out. But this is what you're going to see. That is what the inside of a plant looks like that transports water up its stem. So, and again, these things exist all over the earth. Like that's in, where was that? Ireland or Italy or something like that. They're in Iceland. They're in, like I said, the United States, South America, Australia, Africa, everywhere. Everywhere there's existence, there's examples of these types of things. So now there's also then the argument, okay, so if these trees were cut down or if these trees were taken, where are they now? How come we don't see evidence of them or their giant structures, scattered about the earth? That would kind of play into the fact into the mining theory. So basically, that the earth is essentially a giant mine, and everything has been mined here. And the Earth used to be much more abundant in its resources, and the biomass that used to exist on Earth used to be much greater. Things were much bigger. There was much more life. There was much more abundance. And then a giant cataclysm happened, and we essentially started over. And the life that we know of here on Earth today is very young in comparison to what these life forms would have been, what they, what they grew and amounted to before whatever happened. So, yeah, there's again, this type of evidence exists all over the world, and there's even cultures like one of the original civilizations that existed on Earth, the ancient Sumerians. Their entire belief structure is that the Anunnaki came to Earth, created humanity, created humans as essentially slave labor to mine the resources that existed on this planet, and they gave us the ability to self-replicate. They gave us the ability to be self-judgmental and to be intelligent and ever improving, or ever improving, and basically just created us to continue the mining operation to strip the Earth of all of its resources and ship it away. So a lot of these giant trees that would have been essentially made up of granite, of precious stones, of quartz, of rubies and minerals, and all the gems and all these, is essentially what these trees would have been made of. All of that's been taken and shipped off and used throughout the cosmos. Scully said gold. Sorry, I'm falling back on the comments, but Scully said gold, and yeah, the Anunnaki coming here and mining the Earth for gold is one of their main purposes, and it's documented. It's not like it's even hidden. That's Michael Tillinger goes back and finds evidence of this happening 200,000 years ago. 200,000 years. That's way older than what modern science is telling you is the existence of humanity and the existence of our technology and of our current civilizations. This stuff has been happening from way back. So maybe that's why there's no giant trees anymore. They've been long used. So Cena says, we're talking trees, amazingly beautiful. Cena says, mountains' interiors are primarily rock. I wonder how deep you'd have to drill to find old roots inside mountains. Well, here's the thing. There are... How am I going to say this without sounding crazy? Mountains are... What we know of as mountains are either broken trees or quarry waste, like rock piles, rubble. Okay? There are very few solid rock mountains that don't exhibit some sort of evidence of either mining or of being a former living organism. Okay? So a lot of the mountains that we know of or that we can think of aren't even really such. They are piles. They are rubble. They are just a collection of rocks in a cone shape, the way any sand or pile of rocks would pile up if you were to dump it somewhere. The way it looks out of the back of a dump truck every single time. So big up Brendan. Brendan says, I'm late. I wanted to tune into this episode. I was out trying disc golf for the first time. Oh, snap. Well, did you enjoy it, Brendan? Now that I know you disc golf, we're just gonna have to do that as well, you know? So I'm gonna set up another disc golf meetup here very soon, another BaddaSkat throwdown. So I'll keep you posted, man. I'll make sure to send you the invite. So yeah, Cena says, now I want to go get a microscope and look inside my plants. I definitely recommend you do that. Deborah says, Bada, you had me so curious, was looking up all of this earlier. There are some amazing sites I saw, and now I am dying to try and visit. Awesome. Definitely, I mean, I'm the same way. As I was doing more research on this today, too, I was just like, oh man, now I want to go see all this stuff. Now I want to go put my hands on it. I can't wait. Can't wait to go see these things and, you know, put my hands on it. Scully says, just got in. Glad I got to catch some live stream on this. Yes, Scully, big up. Deborah says, also that shirt is fire. Give thanks. Shouts out to Raise Fist Propaganda every single time. Go check out Raise Fist Propaganda and all this stuff they put out. They got a whole huge merch line. Big up to Jeff. Enough respect. Scully says there could be giant trees frozen under Antarctica, miles down and ancient. Yes, Antarctica has a lot of evidence of ancient mining. There's all sorts of stuff throughout Antarctica. One of the things that I also saw today was that the amount of ice that is present in our poles is the result of the loss of biomass that was experienced here on Earth. And, and that these places didn't used to be covered with ice. So Antarctica didn't used to be a frozen wasteland. Not before this cataclysm happened. So, yes, Scully says gold. The Anunnakis and the Sumerians were mining gold. If the Sumerians kings list had them living thousands of years, then the trees should have too. That's one of the theories as well, is that, life before this cataclysm was much different. And if you look at a lot of the ancient text, a lot of this coincides. So, like, a lot of the list of kings, for example, the list of Sumerian kings, there were 8 kings that ruled for some like 400,000 years or something like that. So these kings all lived for 20, 30,000 years at a time. And, that's far longer than a human life. But the Earth was a lot different. If these large life forms existed, we would have had much different atmospheric conditions. We would have lived in a much different environment. We didn't use the type of resource burning technology that was used or that we use now. So there's not the type of carbon emissions. There's not the waste and those types of byproducts. So yeah. And there's lots of evidence of larger forms of life existing all over. The fossil record shows lots of examples of larger forms of life that we still see today. So yeah, there's all sorts of evidence of that, man. Cena says, I gotta share something with you guys off topic. I had a red-tailed hawk land on my arbor that's only 12 feet from me. The end. Big up. Hawks are very high vibration animals. And a lot of times it's said, when a hawk or when a bird of prey comes into your presence and puts itself by you, it's a symbol of protection. It's a symbol of a watching eye. So Scully says, hey bro, I want to know your opinion on Mount Olympus, Mars, the biggest mountain in our galaxy. I'm not too familiar with the makeup of Mount Olympus. However, Mars itself is essentially a giant byproduct of civilization, and essentially what could potentially happen to your planet if you use up all of its resources. So, um, so Mount Olympus could definitely be another example of quarry waste, basically like a pile of rubble that was created from the excavation of other materials from the ground nearby. So, um, so yeah, could definitely be that. Brendan says, "Sounds good, man. I'm digging it thus far, but trees fascinate me. Trees fascinate me, man. You listen close enough, you can hear them talking. This is true. Um, if you do have the opportunity to go into a wooded area by yourself and spend as much time in there as in silence as possible, you will definitely hear the communication of trees. If you grow your own plants, like if you grow your own food, vegetables, fruit trees, you will also know the communication of plants. The plants also communicate with each other, and this has also been scientifically released as well, that plants communicate underground via their root systems and via fungus. So the mushrooms, the different culture, the fungus that grows underground is essentially the landlines that trees use to talk to each other with. And they send signals through this. They send information related to nutrients, to weather conditions, all sorts of stuff is transmuted or uh, yeah, is sent through this network. So that's a very real thing. So Timothy says, "Big up, Timmy." Timmy says, "Sorry I'm late. Hope all is well. Much love. Bless up." Give thanks, Timmy. Hope all is well with you as well. Hope all is well with you as well. That's a tongue twister. Scully says, "Rhizosphere, my Coriza." Yeah, those are the different mushroom fungal networks underground. Tina says, "Companion plants are awesome." Yeah. But this isn't just a companion plant. This is this is all over. This is like essentially like the Earth's intercommunication system. So yeah, it's not it's more of a symbiotic type of thing than companionship. You know, they work through each other. But big up Scully says, "Respect Badda, keep sharing wisdom. Give thanks. Give thanks for tuning in, man. Give thanks to everyone again for sharing. Again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. If you're watching this again as a rerun, feel free to leave your questions as well. I'll address them as they come through once I get the notifications. So, give thanks again, everyone, for your support. Thank you for sharing the video. So to recap, some of these giant trees, some of the pictures that I've showed you, or if they were giant trees, let's just say that. If they were giant trees, some of these trees would have been miles high, 10 miles, 15 miles. Some of these trees would have been large enough and so so organically diverse that they could have definitely sustained large amounts of life in and within their structures. And if you do go back and you check a lot of ancient cultures, many ancient cultures refer to a time on Earth when large trees did exist. So So these are theories that are both scientifically plausible and also culturally accepted all over the world. Um, and there are a lot of native indigenous American tribes that believe that even Devil's Tower was the actual tree of life in which all of humanity existed on before the cataclysm. And the cataclysm can be found via scientific evidence, again, all over the earth, all over the world. So, so most of the forests that we know of on Earth today are very young, are not more than 200 years old. So, so the the so the plausibility for these types of ancient trees to have potentially existed sometime way in the past is potentially feasible. So, only more reason why you should continue to question everything. So, question everything. Go out and search and find out what's the average height of forest over the earth right now. Find out how tall trees currently get and why are they only limited to that height. Um, look up some of the oldest trees that are in existence, and you'll see that all of the old trees all over the earth are all known, documented, cataloged, and records are kept on their everyday existence. Because these are rarities. So continue to question everything. Keep looking into it. Keep digging. Keep trying to find those answers. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them. I'm always taking topic suggestions as well. So if you have anything that you would like to see discussed on Monday Meditations, please feel free to leave it in the comments as well, or feel free to send me a message, Facebook, Instagram, BaddaSkat.com. Give thanks for all the support. Make sure you do go check out the online store at BaddaSkat.com. I'm going to be getting out some Monday Meditation merchandise here very soon as well. So, again, if there's no further questions, give thanks for the support nonstop. I very much appreciate you guys and how much you continue to support the show and to keep spreading it around. So give thanks thousandfold. Hope everyone's doing well, feeling happy, feeling healthy. We'll link again next week. Enough respect to you all. Bless. Giant trees.